What's up, Joe? I'd like to share an excerpt out of my book, Memoirs of a Convict. Back in 2002, when I was in Chicago Cook County's jail, Supermax Division 9 on Tier 3G, or better yet, 3 Gangster. I called the unit 3 Gangster because it was full of gangster disciples and Latin folks. I do not remember how many cells are on each tier, but I do remember it was 3 to a cell, 2 to a bunk, and 1 on the floor with a mattress, along with the inhabitants of mice that roam freely on the unit. We definitely were outnumbered by the folks, 4 to 1, if not 5 to 1. As far as the people, it was 8 vice lords, including me, 2 Mickey Cobras, 1 Black Stone, and a Latin King. On this particular day, one of the brothers, a folk on the hustlers, just got out of the hole and placed on the tier. Soon after dinner, recreation was called, and everyone from the tier went to the gymnasium. While we were at the gym, I noticed that a lot of folks were not doing their normal routine as far as working out and playing basketball. What I found even more peculiar was how some of them were walking around the gym in pairs and some in group of threes, conversing. It would not have been that out of the ordinary if some of the folks I saw walking together were ones that I knew who did not like each other nor got along. I knew this because I kicked it with a few of them, and for some reason they shared their personal disdain for certain members to me as if I was one of them. After recreation, all of the inmates returned to Tier 3G, and I noticed certain guys that played cards literally all day, every day, not playing cards, which was extremely odd. All the while this was going on, both stayed on the phone without a clue to what was going on around him. It is common for someone to get out of the hole and sweat the phone because they have been confined to a cell all day without any use of the phone. So while he hugged the phone, I made it my business to secure him without him knowing or anyone else for that matter. Once spoke off the phone, I asked him, did he have an APB out on him? He said, what is that? I said, an all points bulletin, meaning the folks has a hit on you? He said, no. So I told him that the reason I asked him was because since he arrived on the tier, things changed. And I explained my theory to him about all the things I had noticed. At 9:15 p.m., the cell doors was open, which is routine, before the 9:30 p.m. lockup, and they remain open until the officers come to the tier to lock everybody up, with the exception of the workers who are left out for about a half an hour to clean up. Once the doors were popped open from the control center, the folks started piling up in the cells to plot. I looked at Foe and laughed and told him that they were on something. Be careful and pay attention. At that moment, I was supposed to put the brothers on a vice lord code, which means caution, be prepared for war, but I didn't. And I could have caused someone to lose their life because I seemed to be the only one that was aware of what was going on. Not that it mattered much, because we were outnumbered, had no knives or any other weapons for that matter, and only a few of us had it in them to fight anyway. Most of the brothers were walking on eggshells every day, scared to death, ever since I arrived. At 9:30 p.m., the officer came on the tier to lock us up. Nothing happened, but that does not mean that it was over. Once we were in the cell, I told my cellmate what was going on and if he noticed how things had changed on the deck ever since Four arrived. He said that he did not notice. So I pointed out all the peculiarities that I noticed. Then he had a eureka moment. Morning arrived and breakfast was served in our cells, which was about 5:30 in the morning. The workers carried all the trays to the east cell, and the officer opened up the cells while the worker handed an inmate his tray. Then the officer locked the cell. Once we are finished eating, we put the empty trays inside the chuck hole for the workers to collect. Out of nowhere, Bo yelled in our cell through the chuck hole, "What's up, Lord?" I asked him how he got out of his cell. He told me that the light in his cell didn't work, so the officer allowed him and the cellmate to keep their cell door open for light. While Fo was at the chuck hole, I took the opportunity to inform him what had been taking place in Division 9 on Tier 3G prior to my arrival. The folks had been bullying the people, and whenever they had suspected one of the brothers having a knife or making a knife or have any other sort of weapon, they ambushed the unexpected brother, up knives on them, and disarmed them of their knife and valuables. And on some occasions, stabbed individuals and even some of their own folks. They even knew how to pick the locks on the cell doors, and whenever the CO left the control center, they picked their way out of their cell and picked the people's cell doors and their own folks' cell doors locks and ambushed whoever they targeted while they slept in the middle of the night. Four abruptly left from the charcoal, came back and slid a machete-sized shank that he must have made out of the light fixture case up under the door, and said if a motherfucker tried to put it on him, we were going to be on Channel 2, 5, 7, 9, Fox, and CNN News. In the Cook County Jail, inmates tear apart anything metal to make shanks. Fo also said that he made a smaller knife as well. My cellie and I was delighted to know that we had another rival on the team. I told Fo to be ready when the doors rolled, and he left to get locked back up in the cell just before the CO arrived to lock the cell doors. When it came to being in a gang in jail, each gang always looked to increase their numbers as a means of power, security, and strength. Like the saying goes, their strength in numbers, and Lord knows that we could do for us for some more good men. But if that man is a bitch, fuck him. I prefer to have one solid soldier on the team than 5 punks. For the next few hours, I just lay back in the bed, anticipating the events that were sure to come as soon as the cell doors came open. I heard the interlock open to the tier, which means that the shift had changed and the officer was going to be counting. And once count cleared, the cell doors would be popped open from the control center. A flash of light spread through the cell from a flashlight as the CO looked inside the cell, taking count of heads that occupied the cell. I got up and peered out the chuck hole and watched CO complete his count and lead off the tier as the tier door made a loud banging sound from closing. Minutes later, I heard a few cell doors get popped, which happened to be the workers and a couple of folks' homies. The folks had the tier sold up, as well as influence on some of the TOs. They were the workers, and they ran the TV. A worker has the privilege to stay out longer and receive extra food when the food gets passed out, as well as move contraband from cell to cell where everyone is locked up, and on some cases, move contraband from tier to tier. The perks may seem small, but depending on how one utilizes their means a lot. I stood back in the shadows of the truck hole and peered outward surreptitiously and watched the folks go to certain cells talking in their truck holes in which I assumed they were plotting. One of the folks stood by a column located by my cell and watched my cell, all the while not knowing that I was watching him, watching me in their every move. Every morning since I have been on the tier, I always made sure that I was fully dressed before the cell doors opened. If the folks ever decided to bum rush my cell, I was going to be prepared for their onslaught. I put on my DOC jail uniform and I wrapped and tucked a large bath towel around my neck to protect my neck from a stabbing, and I waited for the cell doors to pop open. I was standing at the door when the officer began popping open the door from the control center. And as soon as mine was open, I rushed next door to Fo's cell and found him hard asleep. I shook him awake and told him to give me the little knife he had, to get up and come out of the cell. Fo gave me the knife. I tucked it in my waistband and went back to my cell. Once I got back in my cell, I took out an H-band and wrapped it around my thigh tightly, and then tucked the knife on the outside of my thigh and stepped out of my cell and leaned over the top rail with my foot on the bottom rail and looked over around at everyone on the tier while the officer locked all the cell doors. In the Cook County Jail, there was an understanding around the jail amongst the peoples and the folks when it came to movement and living arrangements. When it came to movement, anytime the inmates left off the tier to go to an event such as the chapel, gymnasium, or whatever, all inmates lined up. The people lined up in the front, the neutrons, non-gang affiliated, in the middle, and the folks in the back. As far as living arrangements, the folks reside in the cells on the bottom of the tier, and the people reside in the cells on top. All the tiers in Division 9 are designed the same way. There are two levels of cells with a set of stairs leading up to the top cells, one way up and one way down. Today, that worked in our favor. Only 5 of the brothers came out of the cells this morning, and that included me. I instructed the guys to stay upstairs and not to go down the stairs. If it's going to go down, it would be best for the party to be up here. It was 5 of us against 20 to 30 of them. So being on the top level worked in our favor because we would not have to worry about being attacked from the sides or our back. Plus, the upper deck was narrow, so it definitely would be a tight fight. I stood at the top of the stairs and intensely lifted my shirt up so that everyone could see that I did not have a knife, or at least give the illusion that I did not have a knife. Bo came to my side and asked me what's up. Asked him did he bring Grandmama out, referring to the machete he showed me. He said no. I laughed and told him to look around. At first he did not get it, and then it became clear to him that the folks was onto something, and that something being us. With a look of concern, Bo told me that he was going downstairs to talk to one of the GDs that he knew from another deck. I told him that was out of the question. Going down there would be just like jumping into a pool of sharks. So Fo asked me for the knife that he gave me. I laughed, told him he was popped, and that's my tick.